In today's video, I want to talk about an experiment that I did to see if it is possible to utilize Vite and React Router to create a file-based routing similar to what Nextjs has with its app router. The reason for doing this is I've used Next.js for some time and I like the idea of the app router, the whole layout and pages and file structure and all that. I really like the idea. And I wanted to bring that same idea to an application that we've been working on at work for a couple of years now, which was built using React Router. And going through Vite structure so that it's actually possible to import files using Vite's glob feature, and that gave me the idea of bringing in Next.js kind of Next.js app router into React Router single page application. This is a small application which is built using the app router approach from Next.js using Vite and React Router. Here we have two pages, so we have the home page and the about page, and as you can see, when you click on the link, the content of the page actually changes corresponding to the route that we have. So we have the about, and then home page we have this. If we take a look at the code, you can see it's pretty similar to what we have for Next.js app router, where at the root of the app, well, in this case we have it as pages because I like the pages. We have the layout, which is going to be the root of the entire components tree or your application tree or something like that. So in this layout, we are exporting the components here, and it has the two routes, which is the home and about. So then we have the first page, which is the home page itself, which is what is shown when we come to the home. This is what's shown over there. We have this component over there, and then the about page, which is this, right, which is inside the about folder, which is what's shown over here, right, the about page. It is very, very similar to what we have in Next.js app router. So with this, we can actually add another page. Let's say, for example, you want to add a contact page. So we're going to contact the page of TSX as a contact page. And we actually have to export a component. Once we have that, we can go to contact, just to contact, and we can see the contact pages there. And we can also add it to our routes, whatever US or something. So contact us about and home. We can also add layouts to the app, just like adding layouts in Next.js. For example, we at the contact page want to contact two section of the company's department. Let's say, for example, we have the administration, and you also can contact the customer service. I've already gone ahead and added the layout, which will show two links, which is the first one will be to the customer service contact page, and the second link will be the administration, in which the admin page, which the administration contact us, will be this one, and the customer service route will be the default route, which will render this. We check the application. So at the customer service, we have the contact customer service. At the administration, you can have the admin page too as well. When you're creating a layout file, it is important to add this piece of code to the layout. What this one will do is render the children or the routes nested within that layout. But if this route does not exist, then if we take a look at we can see that the customer, the contact us for the customer, and even the administration is not shown. And because we do not have that piece of code over this, but once we have that in there, it's going to render corresponding UI for us. So you can add layouts, which you can put in a shared UI, and then you can have nested routes deep within that. I want to go through how the routes are created from the file. Index route, where we have where the application starts, or the index.tsx, we have the imports. We import the page and layout files, then we have the errors, and then for pages. You can definitely put them together, but the reason why I went with this approach, it helps to break down the code on how things work. Or you can also go by just removing these two parts, and then you can just focus only on the pages and then layout, depending on how you want it to be. We have the arrows, the arrow files, and the not the 404 pages too as well. So once we have the pages and the arrows, we have there's a function which is actually going to create the whole route objects from the pages, which this function we just name it as the convert pages to routes. It goes through each and every single one of the files which has the structure of an object, which is a string, and then the import function, which will break down the file path into the URL, the segment, and then we create the lazy loaded component with the import function. And here we create the route, which is now going to go to each of the segments. So let's say, for example, the function get route segments from file path will convert this. Pages will be converted to just the root, and then we have the about, and then the page.tsx will be attached to the about page, because page.tsx is not going to be a route endpoint. The reason why we went with this approach is to indicate to the application or to the code how what this about page of this particular component is, whether it is a layout file that we are dealing with or whether it is a page file. You can even take a look at the function itself. So it will go to each of this the file to convert, to remove the slash pages, to split by the forward slash, and then to go to each of the segments into valid URL that the React router understands. The dot will be converted to a slash, which is this one here. So dot slash, right? The dot over there will be split, so it's going to be on its own. So we convert that to a slash, which will be the root the minus sign. The minus sign is an indicator to React router's optional segment. So if we take a look at the optional segments of React router, we use the minus sign over here, which if you have a folder structure, like let's say, for example, the minus tag is going to indicate to React router that this is an optional segment. We convert this into a structure like this. This one will be converted to, this is the optional segment. And over here, if it is a parameter, so if we take a look at the dynamic segments over here in React router, these ones, when you're creating them, we are creating the folders for those parameters. We simply just use the square brackets, right? So you can put your parameter here, just like how Nextjs does this. So this will be converted to in which React router will understand. So after the segments is created, we create the component or the page component itself with the React lazy function, and then we create the routes. If we take a look at the route function, there's a recursive function which is going to go through each of the segments in that route until we get to the last segment. Once we have the last segment, we will add the element or the component, the page component itself, and we create the actions and the loaders. So if there's actions and loaders for that particular page, and then we also create the handle and add in the page type, which will help us along the line later on. And if the whole file that we're dealing with is a layout, then we definitely need the children, because layouts are simply wrappers for nested routes. That's what the page type is helping us to do. If you remember, formats that we have here, where it's going to be the page and the file type, this will help us understand whether we are dealing with a page which won't have any children or a layout which will have children. Once the route is created, we merge it into the main routes itself. And if we take a look at the merge routes function, there's a little bit of checks that we do. If the target route that we are merging it into is page, but the source route that we are bringing in is a layout, because we are using the handle and we are adding the page type at the handle, is helping us do this check. What we will do is we will move the elements, the actions, and the loaders from the target and then add it as a child, the index route for that particular route, just like what we have here. And then the source elements and actions and loaders will now be placed as the target elements, action, source, handles, and error elements. In this case, if the target is a layout, but the source is a page, what we do is to just simply plug that page into the route. Now, the source over here will be the index route because the target path and then the source path is the same. If we take a look at the contacts folder that we have here, we have both the layout and then the page. So when it reaches this check, we know that one of it is a page and the other is a layout. We convert the page to be the index route. That's why when we go directly to the contact as page, it will render the page over here, right, under the layout instead of the layout being rendered in the page. And the other checks that is done is also if the source is a page and the target is pathless. So a pathless route is simply you have this kind of structure here. Over here, this is a pathless because it has no elements to render. It's just passing through. Target is pathless. That means it has no element but has children. Then the source part that we are on will be the index there because both of them are on the same they have the same path, the same path over here. So definitely the source will be the index route. So in that particular case, we will have a route like this. That's what this piece of code will do. Just going to add an index route for a pathless route. Other check that to do is if the source is a layout and the target is pathless, which in this particular case is simply just missing the elements. So we are going to bring in the source element. So because the source is a layout and the target also is a pathless. So it's going to add in the elements, the actions, the loaders, and the handles and the error elements for that. And the other final check or what we will continue to do is if there's any children, it's just going to push any remaining children of the source into the target. So it's just going to merge, and then whilst it's merging, these checks goes on to ensure that the merge is done correctly. Now, when all the routes is created, when everything is done, it then goes on to add the error elements. You can add the error elements to each of the routes if it exists, or depends on you. Then you can also add, we have a function to also add the 404 pages to as well. So it just add the 404 pages. What the 404 page will do is it will simply add the route like this to add this let's say object to the child of any route that it matches to, which will stand for if React router searches for all the children in that particular route and finds nothing, then it should render this for as the last element. Basically that's it. But there are some few things to take note of, at least with this particular code. Is one of it is for the actions and loaders. Unfortunately, there is no clear way to know if a file is exporting a function, a particular function or not. With Vite, at least at this point, there is no clear way to identify that. So what we did is simply call this import function. So we create an action function and a loader function. We're going to call this import function and we check to see if there's an action if there's an action in the as part of the export or a loader as part of the export. That means that in any of the pages, we can simply just export a function called an action, which is going to be called when there's a post to this particular page, or you're going to add another function called loader, which is going to be called when this page or this layout or route or whatever is accessed. So you can add these two functions, which unfortunately leads to if there's a path or if there's a file that has none of these exports, loading of that page will be slow because has to import the whole file and check to see it has those functions in there or not, which will make the page a bit seem slower. This is a behavior from React router. If you take a look at the loader of React router, it says that each route can define a loader function to provide data to the route element before it renders. So this is the key thing, before it renders, which means that in this particular case, this loaders is going to be called every single time the page is being accessed or a layout is being accessed, because there is no way to know from Vite that is exporting a function. There's other ways you can try to get that by, let's say, for example, looking for, so you can actually have files for loaders and actions. But that also leads to a problem where if a particular folder has a layout and a page, like the contacts folder in this particular instance, then which of these files would the loader and the action be attached to? That's also another problem that this will lead to. At this point, we just chose to go with the intention of just importing the file and then looking for the loader and the action from that set file. There's another way that you can potentially improve the speed or the rendering of a page, that is using the defer from React router. So in the loader function, you can defer a promise, and then using the await component, you can quickly render a fallback UI whilst the data itself is being loaded behind the scenes. We didn't add this yet. We just simply wanted to test and see if even the whole concept of an app router actually can even work with Vite and React router. But now that we know, we can most likely find some ways around it to improve the rendering of the UI. So that's one of the critical aspects of this whole experiments that we tried. So here are some of the tests that we wrote. Converting of the file path into the various segments. As you can see, we even have the parameters in here, which will be converted into the structure. So in this particular case over here, because of this parameter, and React router does not accept just a parameter segment, it needs to be relative. So we have to create this kind of route pending with the forward slash and then the parameter to that particular segment. So this is what React router expects, and then we have the various other segments, combine multiple segments as we have in this particular case, and we have the vendor, which would then be two parameters added as well with the vendor too as well. You can also have in errors that will be converted to this various segment, and then you can handle this error in any case that you want. So in this particular case, really it's up to you on how you want your file structure of naming convention to be. And we have these options. So if you have a folder with a minus at the beginning, it will become an optional route. In this particular case, inventory will become an optional route. Here too, if you have a minus in front of it, the parameter will be optional in attachment to the previous route, that the relative route over there. So you can find the code on GitHub. Post the link in the video description and in the pinned comments. Go in and check it and try it out. If it's working for you, great. If there are some changes that you want to do, obviously you can definitely do them. And yeah, that's going to be it for this particular video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next